Hello, this is Domenico, and this is a continuation of a paper 3 quantitative question using the production possibilities curve. It's part of a playlist, which includes circular flow, PPC, and the links to additional playlists that utilize this particular practice question for paper 3, playlist for paper 3, also for supply and demand playlist, and so on. So let's take a look at the question. In the previous video, we already answered questions A and B. And in our answer of question A and B, we demonstrated our work by using the given model. We had barley production being reduced by 24 million metric tons from 40 million to 16 million, which represented a 60% decrease. So I'll mark that as a 60% decrease in production. And that gave us a 52% increase in wheat production from here to here. I'm just going to mark that as 52, 50. Let's see if I can write that in. I'm probably writing right on the edge of that. 52% increase in wheat production. So we're reallocating resources away from barley production and towards wheat production. That's what this was discussing. Now I can connect this quantitative question using the PPC curve to some supply diagrams using the non-price determinant of competitive supply. So in this video, we're going to look at question C. Using a competitive supply diagram, so I'm going to underline that. I'm reading the question. I want to focus on what it's asking of us. So it's asking us for a particular model, competitive supply, which is a non-price determinant of supply. Explain how an increase in the global price of wheat impacts the supply of barley in the Russian Federation. So why are we getting an increase in wheat production? Perhaps it's because of an increase in the global price of wheat. And because farmers see that increase in the price of wheat, they're going to increase their quantity of supply and they're going to reallocate resources away from barley. So there's less land and capital and labor available for barley production, and that would reduce the supply of barley. So I want you to pause the video and draw that model, and then we'll take a look at your work. Please pause the video now and illustrate a competitive supply diagram in the context of question C. Please pause the video now. Okay, so let's take a look at your work. So I'm going to draw two models here side by side. I'll use all this space here. I take this all the way across, draw another curve right here, let's say. All right, so we have two graphs side by side to illustrate competitive supply. For the sake of space, I'll just label P on the y-axis for price, P on the y-axis for price. It's also measuring costs of production, price and costs of production. We're also measuring the quantity of output on the x-axis. There we go. So I'm going to illustrate two initial supply curves. Supply curves are upward sloping according to the law of supply. Here I'll have another one, let's say like here. Okay. So I'll label this S1 equals marginal costs of production. I'll label this S2 equals marginal costs of production. And let's set a abstract price. So we'll have price set perhaps here, setting output here. So I'm going to label that P1 and Q1. And let's draw another price over here. Let's say it's a relatively similar price. Doesn't have to be, but anyway. Setting output here. So I'm going to label this P3, and you'll see why. P3 with quantity of output at Q3. Let's label some points. I'm starting at point A, and later you'll see why I'm labeling this point C. So it says here there's an increase in the global price of wheat. So we're going to assume that graph A is the global market for wheat. But global market for wheat. Okay, then we have graph B. Here we have the market for barley. Fine. Okay, So increase in global price. All right, fair enough. I'll show a higher price. Here is P1 going to P2 with the quantity supply increasing according to the law of supply. So I'm going from P1 to P2, increasing quantity supply from Q1 to Q2, taking me from point A to point B. That's a movement along the supply curve because there's a direct relationship, a positive relationship between price and quantity of supply. So there I've illustrated that. So think about that. So we have that higher price. We see that increase in the quantity for wheat. And in order for farmers, let's say in Russia, to increase their wheat production by 52%, they have to reduce their barley production by 60%, as we illustrated in the previous questions. So if we're going to reduce barley production, that would be a non-price determinant of supply shifting supply inward because we're allocating less land resources towards barley production. So to illustrate that, I would just have the supply curve shift in from S2 to S3. Okay, S2 shifting to S3 equal to the marginal costs of production, and that will set output at point D. And that reduces the quantity of output along that new supply curve to Q4 while holding the price of barley constant at P3. Okay, so we see here that we've illustrated a competitive supply model and we've connected that concept to the production possibilities curve. Okay, so we can see figure 4, we're allocating land, labor, capital towards either wheat or barley production. In questions A and B, we started at point A with output of 50 million metric tons of wheat and 40 million metric tons of barley. And now we can understand from question C that due to a higher price for wheat, that increases the quantity supply. So the wheat goes up. The price for wheat rises from P1 to P2. That's going to lead to a movement along the supply curve from point A to point B, leading to an increase in the quantity of supply. So we see that we're able to increase the quantity supply of wheat from 50 million metric tons to 76 million metric tons, a 52% increase. And that's going to come at the cost, the opportunity cost, the cost of barley. We're going to reduce barley production from 40 million to 16 million metric tons. Holding the price of barley constant, the supply curve is shifted in due to less land, labor, and capital being provided towards barley production. So it shifts in from S2 to S3 while holding price constant at P3, decreasing the quantity of supply from Q3 to Q4 along that new supply curve. So we've answered question C. Using competitive supply curve, explain how. So we've drawn it and we just need to analyze it. So I'll give you a brief analysis. In graph A, global market for wheat, we're measuring price and costs on the y-axis, quantity on the x-axis. In graph B, it's the market for barley, price and cost measured on the y-axis, quantity of output on the x-axis. We have 3 upward sloping supply curves labeled S1, S2, S3, equal to the marginal cost of production, upward sloping according to the law of supply. In graph A, we have an initial price set at point A, price of P1 with the quantity supply at Q1. In graph B, we have an initial price set at P3 with a quantity supply of Q3 along the S2 curve. Due to an increase in the global price of wheat from P1 to P2, according to the law of supply, farmers are incentivized to increase their output while costs of production are held constant from point A to point B or from Q1 to Q2. Due to farmers allocating more land, labor, and capital resources towards wheat production, they will have less land, labor, and capital available for barley production. So that causes the supply curve to shift in from S2 to S3 while holding the barley price constant at P3. That reduces the quantity supply from Q3 to Q4 along the new supply curve of S3 at point D. I'll provide an outline of that analysis in the video notes below. And that's it for this particular video. There'll be a link to the next video where we will tackle question D. Using a supply and demand diagram, explain the role of the price mechanism in the reallocation of resources as a result of a shortage in the global market for barley. We'll tackle that in the next question. Okay, And that's it. If you have any questions, comment those questions below, and don't forget to subscribe and to like. Thank you so much.